Hello everyone, I'm starting a new series on the IAM. So this will be an IAM fundamental series and I'll start with the mother of the IAM, OAuth 2.0. So this series will be a combination of theory and a practical implementation, exploitation, misconfiguration, best practice, and recommendation. Okay, without further ado, let's start with some fundamental on the OAuth 2.0. OAuth 2.0 is called Open Authorization and it is an standard that is well adapted in the industry, and it was created for the delegated authorization. There are two protocols related on the OAuth 2.0. So one is OAuth 2.0 and another one is the extension on the OAuth 2.0, that is OIDC, which is used for authentication. So OAuth 2.0 is purely for delegated authorization and OIDC is an additional layer that can be used for authentication. Okay, within OAuth 2.0, there are four critical components that we need to understand. So, first one is the resource owner. Resource owner means the person or the entity that owns protected resources on the server. For example, if I want any third party application to access my Google Calendar events on behalf of me, then I am a resource owner. And the client is the third party application that wants to access the resource owner data which is on the resource server. So, in my example, the client is third party application that wants to access my Google Calendar data. And the authorization server. So authorization server can be same as an resource server or can be an different entity as a resource server. So the role of authorization server is to grant an access token so that the client can use that access token to fetch or to get resource from the resource server on behalf of the resource owner. We'll be implementing an authorization server and the Keycloak in a while, and another one is the resource server. So uh, for my previous example, authorization server can be like account.google.com that will grant the token for the client on behalf of resource owner, and the resource server is an actual place where the information or protected data are being stored. So Google Calendar API can be a resource server for my example. So in the end of the flow, the client or third party application will use the bearer token of the resource owner that they get from the authorization server and use that bearer token uh, to fetch resources on the resource server. So resource server usually does not recognize the client or third party application because it is not they are not like directly connected, but if the client application use an resource owner token or resource owner identifier access token which has scope uh, to fetch certain information from the resource server, then the resource server will check the access token, it will validate against the scope they requested and the resource they requested. So if the access token has then as an scope that they are currently requesting, they then the client application can fetch those resources. Okay, so staying on my example, for example, I have consented for the client application and give an access or scope of read calendar event. Then the authorization server will grant an access token that has permissions to fetch the calendar event uh, on behalf of a client from the resource server. So it just have a limited scope. It can only fetch the calendar event, but it can't modify or delete the calendar event. So the client with those access token and the access will reach out to Google Calendar API uh, and pass the access token in the request. So the Google Calendar API will validate the access token and it will see the what are the scope and permission the access token holds, and depending upon the scope, so it has the read calendar event and it will pass the calendar event to the client application. Okay, so these are the four component and I'll show you how they are related. Okay, this is an OAuth 2.0 flow. So for example, a resource owner can be me, who owns an uh, calendar event on the Google Calendar server. The client is third party application that I want to use to fetch my calendar event that is on the Google Calendar API or Google Calendar resource server, and the authorization server is an Google account server and resource server is an calendar API or calendar server. So the flow start with resource owner invoking a client for a certain task. For example, if I want to sync my uh, calendar events across different calendars such as Google Calendar, Apple Calendar, Outlook Calendar in a one organized place, that is a Calendar app. So the flow start by invoking a client for a task from the resource owner, and the client send authorization request with client ID and scope to the authorization server, and authorization server will request for the consent to the user. So when we try to, like, this is an standard method. So when we try to log in with the Google or log in with the GitHub, it will show us the prompt that the application will want to access your profile information. Do you want to approve the grant or something like that screen? So the consent is screen. Maybe I can search for that. Okay, it's like this, login with sign in with Google. So this will be the consent screen that will be prompted for us. So after we consented for that access, then the authorization server will give the authorization code flow. So I'm talking about authorization code flow on the OAuth. There are lots of flow. I'll explain it later. So the authorization server responds with the authorization code to the client, and the client will use that authorization code, or client will access that authorization code for the access token, and the authorization server will respond with access token and refresh token. uh, so this is just for the OAuth 2.0. If we scope it with, if we scope for the OpenID, then it will also give us that ID token. So once the client has access token, the client will request the resources from the resource server. So at this point, the client has an access token, and it will ask, or it will call the resource server with an bearer access token, and the resource server will return the resource to the client. So this is the whole flow of the OAuth 2.0. And the extra part is like, once the client has an refresh token, it can request for the new access token, the so that the client is like logged in for a long time. So it will use the refresh token to get the new access token. Okay, that's the uh, OAuth 2.0 flow. So Okta has an good resources on the OAuth 2.0, and I will highly recommend a video from the Okta Dev Net's video. This is one of the best video that you can watch it to understand the OAuth 2.0 and OIDC. Okay, so I'll summarize the grant types, but I'll be going deep dive into all of those grant type in the OAuth 2.0. I'll go with the shortcoming on those grant type, when to use one, and how it can be protected for the better security control. So one of the most popular grant type nowadays is authorization code grant type. In the authorization code grant type, okay, maybe I can show you on the Keycloak. That will be easier. Okay, in this video series, I'll be using an Keycloak. So Keycloak can be downloaded and run as a Docker file. Maybe I'll create a new video. Maybe I'll create a separate video to how to get started with Keycloak. Uh, okay. So in this video, I'll create some configuration and start working on it. So I'll name this realm as okay. So RAM, we can consider RAM is an different old where we can configure things. So we can it is like independent of other RAMs. So like, if we want to create a new project, or if we want to create a new tenant, we can consider like creating a new RAM. So I will start with this RAM, and the client is a new application that we want to configure. So I'll create a new application. So here the client type, I'll be mostly working with an OAuth 2.0. So I'll use an OpenID Connect client. Okay, so these are the authentication flow that I was talking about. So we have standard flow, that is authorization code flow. We have direct access grant. So if I hover over here, it will show it is an resource owner password credential grant flow. This one is an implicit flow on the OAuth. This one is service client credential grant type flow. Okay, OAuth 2.0 is an spec. So if I search for spec, we'll see this RFC tracker, and we can see like it has all those flows documented, but it is kind of the complex to understand. So it is not an tutorial or something like that. It is an specification that insist or that dictate us how we can implement the OAuth 2.0 and how we can implement those flows. Okay, so I'll start with an authorization code grant flow. So the flow will works like this. So I've already gone through how all those sequences work, and I've also created a client inside the Keycloak. Now it's time to see the flow end to end. Okay, so for the client authentication, in the OAuth 2.0, we can broadly categorize client into two types. So one is an public client, another another one is an confidential client. So it is sometimes regarded as front channel and back channel. So basically, front channel is an public client. Example: single page application, a mobile code that can't keep secret. So the clients are categorized accordingly, if they can keep secret or if they can't keep secret. And the back channel can be an backend server that can keep secret. So in the front end, all the code are opaque, and using the right debugging tool, we can face the client secret that is being used in the OAuth flow. So that's the reason the front channel or public authentication is not considered as a secure, and it is highly recommended to use Pixie. So I'll go back, like I'll come back to the Pixie later in the video series. So without mixing things up, let's start with the client authentication on. So if I click on the client authentication on, I can use my backend server and use the client ID and client secret to fetch or request the access token. So one thing you can notice is if I turn off this client authentication, like some of those flows are inaccessible or blur out. Okay, and I'll get back to the Pixie and Depop later. So far I have turned on the client authentication and turn on the authorization code flow, and this is one of the important flow in the OAuth 2.0. And here we need to configure the URL. So the root URL is an related or relative URL. For example, like localhost 3000, or uh, we need to tell our authorization server where it can give us the authorization code. So for that reason, I need to configure the root URL. This will be the home URL, and the valid redirect URLs can be the callback. Here we can add the multiple valid redirect URI. So while configuring this, what we are telling to authorization server is whenever we request for the authorization code, give us the authorization code back to localhost 3000 slash callback. So uh, it is a way to communicate with authorization server and our client. And the OAuth version is for cars. So if we are using it on the different URL, then the if we are using it on the different URL, for example, like if we are using in a different domain, then we need to enable cars, or we need to add the domain where it should be allowed it to invoke our authorization server. So I'm just using with Postman, so I can skip for this. Maybe I'll get back to it when I create and Entra application and show those flow. Okay, so this is an basic configuration on the Keycloak side. And the important thing is, like, we have a client ID and client secret. So this is my client secret, and this is my client ID. And later I'll be adding a role, authorization, and more to this client. So I think that's a good starting point. Okay, so most of the applications that are compliant to OAuth or OIDC standard, they will provide us a single endpoint. Uh, they will provide us a single endpoint that has all the configurations available, or all the URL endpoints available. It is also known as an well-known endpoint on the OAuth and OIDC. So I can search for some Keycloak. So from the Keycloak documentation, like I can see, we can fetch the well-known API endpoint using this pattern. So here I just need to rename my realm name, so that will be OAuth video series. Okay, so it gives me all the important configurations that is available. For example, like I have an issuer URL, authorization endpoint, token endpoint, introspection endpoint, user info endpoint, uh, JWKS URI, and the grant type supported for this RAM. And it has also the algorithm that is supported as an signing algorithm, encryption algorithm. Okay, so for this video series, I'll be using some of the API endpoints over here. Okay, and also it has given us the endpoint documentation as well. For example, for the authorization endpoint is mainly used to fetch the authorization code. So I'll show you how we can fetch the authorization code, and then using that authorization code, how we can fetch the access token from the authorization server. So here Keycloak is our authorization server, Okay, this is our OAuth authorization endpoint. So what I can do is I can open it on the Postman, and I'll add a new over here. Okay, Keycloak has provided us an documentation for the authorization endpoint. Uh, if you are wondering, this is an OpenID or OAuth implementation spec or documentation. So here it gives us like the necessary informations that we need in order to request for an authorization code. So for example, I can use some headers over here. Okay, so we are requesting for an code. So the response type will be code, and we need to, so this is our RAM uh, RAM endpoint or RAM name. So within the RAM we have lots of clients. So if I see over here, there can be lots of clients. So these are the built-in clients. So account console, and this is the client that I have created. So we need to specify like for which client we are making this request. So for that I need to have a client ID. So the client ID is a non auth, and we need to have a state and redirect URI. So I'll use and redirect URI, and the redirect URI should match with the URI that we have configured. So it is an important uh, security feature as well. So like if we do the wildcard, or if we accept all the redirect URI like as a wildcard, if I do something like that, then it won't be secure. So we need to configure it appropriately. Okay, so our redirect URI is, so what does it mean is whenever you get the authorization code, or whenever you have authorization code, give it back to me on this endpoint. Okay, this is the one of the this is the one of the configurations that we need to do. So let's get back to our code or browser, and here it asks us for sign into our account. So what we need to do is we need to create a users inside a RAM. So I'll build this tutorial step by step. So for example, like I'll start showing how we can create an access token, and then I'll create some resources on the server, or resources on it, and protect those resources with scope, consent, and other things. So I will be showing all the fundamental OAuth concept that is required for us to understand and learn. Okay, so the users will be the resource owner in our example. So I'll create some user. Username is Dave, and I can create credentials. So I can set some password. I can do let me in, and this will be our permanent password. No thanks, Dave, and let me in. Okay, I can assign it to my account. So here is one catch. So we haven't implemented this callback API endpoint. So it won't do anything because the localhost or the callback URL can't reach. So for that, what we need to do is we need to configure an backend server. Okay, so I'll just keep it very simple. Okay, I'll keep it very simple. I'll just create a basic Node.js server. Okay, I'll add Express. I think that's all we need for this. And we need one endpoint called callback. And we want to get code from that endpoint. And I want to return the code. Maybe I can do this code. Okay, and our app will listen to port 3006. Okay, that's good. So what I will do is I'll try it one more time. Since we have an callback URL ready, I should get the authorization code on the callback URL. Okay, so this is an authorization code. So there is one catch on the authorization code. Authorization code is timed max to 1 minute. So we just have around 1 minute to access this authorization code for an access token. Okay, so in order to use this authorization code for the access token, we have another API endpoint that is available, that is a token endpoint. So what we need to use is we need to use the token endpoint. So I'll create a new request, maybe new request over here. And that will be the post. Okay. So here is an documentation for the token endpoint as well. I'll pull that up. So we need to use X form encoded content type, and we need to use the grant type as an authorization code and pass the code along with a redirect URI. So that's all we want, and the method is post. Okay, I can save this here, the header or the body. So we need to use it as xww form URL encoded, and the required field are grant type as an authorization code. So it will be grant type authorization code, and the code will be given to us as a callback. So we need to make use of this code, and as I mentioned, this code is timed max to 1 minute, so after that it will expire. Okay, and another type is redirect URI, and we need to have a redirect URI. Okay, we can try with this configuration, but uh, since our client is confidential, so we need a few more things. For example, we want the client ID and client secret as well. So I'll use, okay, I can show you as it is the error that we get as well. Okay. So this is the code that we got from the authorization server, and we had to exchange our code for the access token like this. So it says invalid client or invalid client credentials. So we are missing two things. We are missing the client ID and client secret. Key. So this is our client ID, and we need to use the client secret. So client secret is available on the credential and client secret. Okay, it shows us the code not valid because it's timeout. So what I can do is I can uh, request for one more time, and at this time I should be able to get the access token for exchange of our code. Okay, better hurry up. So I need to change the code. Okay, need to try one more time. Okay, here we finally got our tokens. So we have access token and refresh token. So it expires in 299 seconds. Okay, so since we got an access token, we can uh, use a JWT debugger or JSON web token debugger. So all these tokens are in JSON web token format, and there is an good resources called JWT.io, and it can debug us the access token or ID token and refresh token for us. So it gives us information such as like it's using RS-256 as an algorithm, and the type is JSON web token. And these are all the decoded claims. For example, it expire at 10:11. This is the issue time, and this is the authenticated time. So this is the time where the user has authenticated. And it gives us the issuer of issuer who created this token, and the audience uh, intended for this token. This will be the subject ID. So the subject ID is an user ID. If I go over the user, check Dave. Okay, this ID is an subject ID, and it is an bearer token. And these are all the roles that currently have. So if we go on and add the scope or create a scope, then the users will have more roles or like more scope, and it gives us some information about the users itself. And if I go over here and do the claim breakdown, then it will give us an human explanation. So this one is for machine to understand this claim. And if I go and check on the claims breakdown, then it will give us the human explanation on like what each of those tokens do. So this is the one of the best JWT debugger we have. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a two token, access token and refresh token. So access tokens will have all the claims of the user, such as like user subject ID, user roles, user resource access, and so on. And there is another type of the ID that is an access token. And if we debug on the access token, so access token is mainly used to fetch the refresh token is used mainly to fetch a new access token from the authorization server. So it has an limited information, such as the type is an refresh token, this is an authorized party, and the scope and the audience. Okay, that's good for the authorization endpoint. And we have also other endpoint called introspection and user info endpoint. So for the user info, I can use this API endpoint and fetch the information more about user detail. So the user info endpoint is basically more of OIDC rather than the OAuth itself. Okay, let's check on the documentation itself. So the user info is an get HTTP method, and we need to pass authorization header with a bearer token. So what we can do is go on the header, add authorization header, and use the bearer and the token that we got as an access token. It may not work because our access token is limited to just 5 minutes. So here I get an unauthorized error. I can like redo the whole flow, or I can increase the timer, of my refresh of my access token. So I think it's on the advanced. And I want to expire it on 60 minutes. Okay, expire in 1 hour, that's fine. Okay, I need to do it one more time. So fetch the code, access the code for the token, grab the access token, and request for the user info endpoint. Okay, we are getting an forbidden error because it does not have scope of OpenID. So I think we can add and scope on the token itself. So I'll try with scope and OpenID. Okay, need to redo the whole flow. So once we get a code, exchange it for the token. Okay, after some debugging I found the fix. So the fix is uh, I need to provide the scope when you request for the code, not later, because it will be too late. So I can add in scope as OIDC, or OpenID and profile, not over here. So this OpenID is basically used to call user info or authentication layer on top of OAuth. So let's try this. So we got the code. After we got the code, we need to exchange it for token as usual. Okay, maybe we got ID token. Yeah, we got the ID token. So I'll debug this with the JWT So ID token will have an user information such as name, email, user ID, subject ID, and the type is ID. So this is an ID token. And since our access token also have the scope to get the user ID information, so we should be able to call the user info endpoint. So let's debug this as well. So it has a scope of now OpenID, and I'll try to call the user info endpoint from here. Okay, so we got the user information. So this is the basic part of OIDC, uh, like touching some of OIDC and OAuth using the authorization code flow. So on the next video series, I'll go deep into creating some resources on it and invoking or using the consent permissions uh, for delegated authorization. So stay tuned for the technical video, theoretical explanation, and practical walkthrough. Have a good one.